What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, where we talk about optimizing life, money, and happiness, one how to at a time. This week on the show, we are talking about how to decide if it makes more sense to rent or if it makes more sense to buy. This could be a situation in the world right now where you might not know what is best, and to be candid, I can't tell you what is the best for you, but I can plant some questions or some thoughts in your head that maybe help you frame how you compare the two and ultimately make a decision of what is best for you. And much like all of the other episodes I do on real estate, I can't do this without graphics, so hold that thought. The first thing I want to talk about in the world of deciding whether you rent or you buy is basically the scale at which you do it. And Jeremy over at Personal Finance Club is always fun with his graphics. He's cool with me sharing them with you. Give him a follow over on Instagram at Personal Finance Club. But these are two different graphics from two different posts that basically say the same thing, and that it's not whether you want to buy or rent, it's what you buy or rent. And so the graphic over on the side, talks about the difference between doing each of these things modestly versus luxuriously, and that the benefits tend to favor being modest in both situations. You don't want to be in a situation where you are either house poor because your house payment is way too high, or you are rent poor because your rent payment is way too high. Ultimately, whichever option you're choosing here, you want to make sure that it's something that you can afford. And so the next thing I want to talk about is going in basically to the pros and cons a little bit. And so when we think about home ownership, you have expenses that are applicable to that. And so you have mortgage principal and you have mortgage interest. Those are baked together. That is the principal and interest that you hear about when you get a mortgage. You also have property taxes. You have insurance. You have repairs. You have utilities. All pretty common stuff that you have as expenses when you own. But you also have transaction costs. And what I mean by that is if you buy a piece of real estate, the only way to get out of it is to sell it. And assuming that you'll need some help doing that, there will be costs associated with that. And there are also costs associated when you buy, assuming that you're going to get some sort of a loan. There will be origination costs to that. You'll have to get the house appraised, different things like that. That ultimately factor in. And so what I really want to do here is highlight the fact that transaction costs are in red, because when I go to the next slide, you will realize that everything here is the same when you rent. And how can that be? Well, realistically, you are still paying all of the same things. You are still paying mortgage principal. You are still paying mortgage interest. You're still paying property taxes. You're still paying for insurance, repairs, and utilities get a little funky. You'll have utilities in either section. Whether or not it's included in your rent or not could be a little different. But basically, you are paying a rent payment so that somebody else takes care of all of these items for you. And so ultimately, your housing expense is your housing expense. And so it's more important to think about what you need out of your housing expense as to compare whether or not one makes more sense than the other in a financial sense. And so what I mean by that is you want to be in a situation where you can afford either option, and you want to start thinking about what is the best for me, because ultimately I'm paying for all of the same things no matter what. But we'll skip ahead a little bit here, and we'll talk about I'm going to say income when you own your house. And that's basically that the mortgage principal goes to you, in the sense that if you ever sold that house, you'd get to recoup that. And you have the opportunity to appreciate the appreciation of real estate in the marketplace. And so if you own your home, overall, on average, the cost of housing is going up in America. And so over time, you have the ability to receive the benefit of that. And so when we think about the flip side of that, is that there are also incomes when you rent, and primarily that's the freedom of location. And so you buy a house and you're basically committed to that house for a decent amount of time. And I say that because if you do not stay in that house for long enough, the chances are that your transaction costs are going to exceed the amount of benefit that you got from the income, in air quotes, from the previous slide. And so when you rent, you don't necessarily have that problem, because basically you sign yourself up for some sort of a timeline commitment. And when it's over, you decide to either stick around for a little while longer or you decide to go somewhere else. And so you've got the flexibility. And so ultimately, what we're having right now is a situation where whether or not it makes more sense for you to rent or to buy, in my mind, goes back to slide number one. And as long as you are doing either one modestly, either one can be a good answer for you. And if you're at a phase in life where you think that your location is rather fixed, you think you're going to be there for a long time, maybe it does make sense to buy. But if you're in a phase of life where, for example, when I was in college and right around the time that I got out of college, I was moving every year or so. And so, besides the fact that I didn't have any money to do it at the time, it didn't make sense to buy. And so to think about these situations, not necessarily as just, oh, my rent would be $1,000 and I could buy for 900. There's more nuance to that. And so I hope you're asking yourself the right types of questions from a geography standpoint or more or less a location standpoint to decide whether or not it makes sense for you to do one or the other. And if you got any questions about this, let me know down below. That's going to bring this episode of the show to a close. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of real estate clarity. And in the event that it doesn't, reach out to me in the comments down below. I talk about real estate all the time. It's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. Happy to help you chat about it. And go ahead and leave me your thoughts down below like that. And if you got any feedback for this episode or you got any ideas for things you want me to cover in the future, you can get in touch with me in the comments down below. As always, you can subscribe to be the first to know about new videos each and every Wednesday. Hit the notification bell. You'll get a notification. You'll be the first to know. So again, this is real estate. This is my world. If you need any help with it specifically, or if you're in the Indianapolis market, get in touch with me. Again, either in the comments or at indiedwell.com. Be sure to help you out if I can. Till next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.